21, heard the word non-binary, and I was just like, that's it. So I definitely think that had there been more language earlier on, I would have felt that connection that I felt at 21 with those words. But, you know, growing up where things were so binary, and even when transgender identities became something we spoke about more, even that was very binary, I didn't necessarily have the opportunity to solidly say I'm a not cisgender, because cisgender wasn't a word in our vocabularies. So I think it's really great to see all of the young folks who are able to identify themselves so young now, because they do have that language.
And why do you think society is becoming so, like I said, when I was reading that, I was shocked by some of the attacks that were going on. Why do you think that there's more attacks that are happening in this era now versus maybe in the past?
I think that, unfortunately, if you look at the kind of like statistics and data on really, honestly, any demographic that isn't a rich, straight, cisgender, white male, you will notice a sharp increase in violence. And honestly, I attest a lot of it to 2016. I attest a lot of it to the current federal administration, because when you have people who are in positions of power, people who are supposed to be leaders, everybody's watching them. And I think that a lot of the individual people committing more violent acts against transgender people and things like that, or even states that suddenly are trying to enact more anti-gay or anti-trans legislation, I truly believe they are watching what's happening in the federal government, and they feel like this has given them the freedom to say and do things that they have been wanting to say and do, but felt like they couldn't, because it was very clear that there were a lot of people who were supporting these groups that they wanted to commit these acts against, and they knew that there would be a lot of negative repercussions for them. And I feel like this has been almost like a green light for them. It's been a green light for them to go ahead and do these things, because even if young people, or increasingly really people from various demographics, you know, are out in the streets protesting these things that are happening, the people committing these violent acts are attempting to, or successfully, unfortunately, enacting this really dangerous legislation. What they know is that the federal government isn't coming for them, that there's no, I think they just feel like there's no real risk for them, because they know that the people in the highest levels of power agree with them and are trying to do similar things up there.
Because one of the things that when I was reading about you that really impressed me about yourself is that it seems to me that once you're going to college and everything, that you are actually taking a leading role as an activist yourself, even at the young age that you're in. You're in your early 20s, and I know that, like with Black Lives Matter, a lot of young people put themselves on the front lines and became involved. And it seems to me, in a lot of ways, that's what you're doing as well for this community. Because it seems to me, if I remember reading correctly, you even said that you might be interested in running for office yourself at some later time, and I don't know if there's any current person of transgender that's even identified in either the Massachusetts Senate or Massachusetts House, or definitely on the federal level. You would have to tell me if there is, because I don't know that off the top of my head. But it seems to me that you were willing to be one of those pioneers in this kind of being an advocate.
Yeah, so one kind of cool thing that we've noticed is that there has been a huge increase in transgender and gender nonconforming people running for public offices, and in some areas they actually did get their party seats in their primary. In a few places, I think they have won local seats, and this is actually true for all of the typically marginalized demographics. I think a lot of us of various and intersectional marginalized identities are sort of at this place where we're like, as much as we kind of just want to burn everything down and completely start over, we know that feasibly what we need to do is get in there and fix things from the inside out. I've definitely been extremely fortunate to attend undergrad as well as law school in Boston, Massachusetts, which is a city filled with colleges and universities and a lot of activism, I think, for that reason. I've also been extremely involved in a lot of the Black Lives Matter activism up here, and then also like all of the queer and trans activism. And I've been trying to work closely actually with some of the main leaders of other various movements, such as like Black Lives Matter, because I think that something that rarely gets addressed in most social movements is intersectionality. And I would love to see us kind of all able to realize that and support each other's activism, and also kind of, make our own projects more intersectional. Like Black Lives Matter has done a lot to work with folks of the queer and trans community and kind of just start stuff as basic as like pronouns and introductions.
Yeah, definitely. Do you find that the trans community is doing a good job of reaching out to the Me Too movement? Because that's the other movement that has kind of come about these days as becoming like a primary movement. But I just wondering, do you feel that you're getting the kind of welcome that you should get from that community, or is that still another community that you feel that you need to reach into?
So there's actually been a lot kind of going around, mostly on social media, about this precisely, and about the importance of the Me Too movement, ensuring that they are that they're inclusive of queer and trans people, because one of their main lines is like, believe women, and that's obviously extremely important and not anything any of us would disagree with, but the messaging kind of can take on a very like binary and cisgender kind of like angle. So a lot of queer and trans people have been trying to tweak the language to things like believe survivors or believe women and transgender people and non-binary people and whatever, because obviously this is something that impacts a lot of people across intersectional identities. And there's also a lot of data on outrageously high statistics of sexual harassment and sexual violence within the queer and trans community. And I think that it would be really great, definitely, to have the queer and trans activists kind of being able to show the Me Too movement support in a way that also, I guess, kind of helps them understand, like, hey, we're here, like from us, hey, we're here, we're next to you while we're standing together. I just want you to know that no one would ever disagree with the things that you're saying, but I need you to know, maybe, I don't identify as a woman, but I identify with everything else that you're speaking about. And hopefully I'll be able to encourage that necessary dialogue of, can the message be like, believe survivors, or something like that, and being able to have sort of gender neutral and inclusive language. And then, like when you're sharing all these other statistics, I think it's important to show all these other intersectional statistics. And I think that it would be a really powerful way to bring everybody together with this movement that has gained so much support. I think that they can really only gain more support from there, and I think being able to show everyone that they're working with and supporting would definitely just allow all of the social movements to grow.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I know that's one of the things that Reverend Barber has been talking about here in North Carolina with his Rebirth of the Poor People's campaign, is trying to get different people from different societies, be that revolving around orientation, be that revolving around gender identity, be that revolving around racial identity, whatever the various dividing factors that we as a people will seem to use on a regular in just society in general. Now, another myth that I saw when I was doing the research and everything is that some people try to link sexual orientation to the gender identity. So could you explain a little bit about how that is totally different and they are not one and the same?
Yeah. So sexual orientation is just who you're attracted to. So it's kind of this like outward experience, whereas gender identity is about you and how you identify your gender, and it's more of an internal experience.
Gotcha.
I think that's one of the most simple ways to put it. There's also a great infographic called The Gender Unicorn, put out by the Trans Student Education Resource Center or something. They just go by Tesser, T-S-E-R. Their graphics are all awesome and really explain things in a lot of ways that are just so immensely clear that their work gets used all the time in Trends 101 trainings, including mine. So the Gender Unicorn, I definitely highly recommend if folks are more interested.